But look, we're really excited to be here today to talk about Striver and our VR enterprise platform and what we're doing in the space and hear obviously from you of what you're looking for as well and everything. But I thought for a little bit more context, JJ and I could talk a little bit more about what we're doing day to day at Striver. JJ, do you want to kick us off?
Sure, I can kick us off. So I am working in product at Striver, and I manage one of the teams of product managers at Striver. From day to day, we are looking at the platform and how we can serve enterprise customers, and that is end to end. So I'm looking at not only managing of devices, I'm also looking at managing content and how to get that VR content on the devices. And then once you have your learners training on those devices with the content, it collects the data and then bringing that data back to the platform and providing ways that you'll see later today on how you can take different views of that data, and we just call that analytics. So device, content, and analytics.
Yeah, it's funny. JJ and I don't, did we start around the same time? I think we did.
Probably.
um, Around Striver, but like
Yeah.
it's been about 2 years now, but it's been fun to see you go from like, learning one product area to learning another to then overseeing several. It's just been a cool process. But as you have questions in this, JJ is the one here to answer. So be sure to fire
Thanks,
them
John.
away. For me, so I run product marketing at Striver, and again, I partner with the product team really closely, but also really focus on overall, like, how we help enterprises learn more about our platform, what you're trying to accomplish with your technology needs, with your learning needs, and how we can be that solution for you. So kind of being that bridge between, our customers and our product team and just trying to do all we can to get the word out. And so, again, excited to meet with everybody here today. To go over a little bit of an agenda. So we're going to talk about the evolution of immersive learning. We'll look at the different pillars and steps there, and that flows into how Striver then came to life, and a little bit about you know, how our company started, where it started, who it started with, and where we're at today. We'll talk about the Striver platform, the core components, what we're looking at there when we talk about the Striver platform. And then we'll go into a live demo that JJ will take us through of the actual product, and then we'll look a little bit in headset as well, but we'll be focusing on kind of our product and tools. To kick us off, what we love to hear first is why you're here, in a sense. What's the number one reason you're looking at VR training, or what's the number one reason you're feeling, this would be a good session to attend? And if you can put those right into the Q&A chat, we love to look at those, kind of react, see what you're looking at there. But anyways, please get in the Q&A. Tell us what you're looking, what's the number one reason you're looking at VR training, and then we can go from there. Yeah, so look, I'll talk through a few of these, which is really interesting. So sales enablement for a high-tech firm, super cool concept. We can talk. I think some of this we should talk maybe towards the end of like actual customer examples, but these are things that we've done before. Interested in doing certification in VR. I'd be curious to hear more about that. Clients who want to use the metaverse to improve employee retention, training, outcomes. We'll talk about that in the next few slides. Next level training for retail. That's awesome. Stuff we've done with Verizon, Walmart, and different businesses. Would be really cool to think through that. Integrate with our LMS. Yeah, like Adam, this is something that we can talk through probably outside of this conversation, but we do a lot of LMS integrations that we can talk through. Better engagement. That's a theme we're hearing. Learning outcomes. VR for our clients. Yeah, this is awesome. I
Yeah.
really appreciate you guys looking through this. JJ, anything standing out to you?
I'm scrolling back because I saw one that I really liked. Better learner engagement and learner outcomes. I
Yeah.
really like that one because it's focusing less on the technology and more on the learning. And I think that we see that VR can really work in some areas. It's not a broad stroke right now, but it works really well in some areas. So I like the focus on the training and not on the tech, even though I
Yeah.
love tech.
Yeah, exactly. And then the distributed workforce, and I just saw a
Mhm.
question come in on scale. Like those two to me, again, we'll talk more through the numbers around that. But these are all what I would call pieces to a puzzle that make sense for, enterprise VR training, to where if you have some of these things of like distributed workforces, trying to improve engagement, trying to figure out how to scale a solution like this is exactly why we built the Striver platform. And we've had a lot of success in this. So thank you again, everyone, for throwing those in there. Some of those we might come back to at the end with some of these questions, but let's dive in. Hopefully it starts answering some things that you're looking for as we go a little bit further. So to start talking about the evolution of enterprise learning, look, there's a few stages that we've seen. There's obviously the traditional classroom learning, and this is used at the majority of enterprises still to this day, where you get everybody in a big conference or classroom and give a presentation, go through workshops, whatever it might be. And this is extremely engaging. If you have the right trainer up there training, you can actually work through some behavioral insights, at that moment where you can repeat what the trainer's doing and go through that. But we realized that from a tech standpoint and trackable standpoint, there was a lot of things lacking there. And that's also hard to scale in the sense of, getting that trainer to all locations, but how do you truly scale that at the same time with the same effectiveness? We saw with e-learning came about, transforming a little bit of what we see in classroom learning. And that really took that flexibility, that timing flexibility, location, the standardization, and it really nailed that opportunity where you can create that set training and you give it to your learners and they kind of go through it through a certain date. We've all been through it. But it also started lacking some of that engaging perspective and the behavioral insights and understanding really where the impact of that is, as opposed to just saying, you've completed a training. And with both classroom and e-learning, it was kind of hard to understand how that was really helping someone get proficient in their job and how do you track that proficiency. And that's what we've really been excited about, kind of the immersive learning category, where we're looking at focused on VR training, is that it brought those things that were really good in classroom learning and e-learning, and then some additional metrics we've seen with our enterprises, to where we've been able to combine this and have engaging, insight tracking training that is flexible on timing, is flexible on location, but it gives that best standard of training every time. And so we're excited to dive into that further, but we wanted to take us to pause and look at that evolution of training. And obviously when you're looking at VR training, one of the biggest things that come to mind is this, simulator, air pilot simulator training that we've seen so much. And this is really the first, test at immersive learning, where you actually can get in that full plane and go through and land it and fly it. And that's obviously really needed because of the cost of, a crash on an airline, the cost of the flying and training and getting the repetitions needed. These are all things that kind of build the thesis on the impact of, immersive learning. But where we've been able to take that and look at, the training headsets we have this today and be able to really provide value in training there. Going a little bit further, so this is one of a quote we talk a lot about at Striver. I hear and I forget, I see and I remember, I do and I understand. This is truly, again, the power of what we see with this, to where doing and understanding is the way that we learn. And we find that, again, in your VR headsets, you're put into a whole immersive environment to where you literally, I don't know if most of you have done VR yet, but it's kind of changed the world you're in right now. You get in there, it's fully immersive, and you're able to actually continually repeat those actions. And so we see that, learning by doing increases that retention on what you're actually performing. Realistic practices lead to real world behavioral changes, and, getting that real time emotional kind of feedback is really critical. This was all started and founded out of Stanford. So we have that Stanford backed research and methodology, so we'll be able to kind of go through that. And that really is industry leader for, being able to actually train and get people in the headset and see the impact and then continue to improve with these enterprises. When we look at kind of the training effectiveness, this is literally you creating the best training with the best trainer with the best experience and being able to lock that in and then consistently scale and replicate that across the business and the company. Security and compliance, we'll talk about at the very end, but we've hit all the key things with some of our core customers, from financial customers to, again, enterprise one with Walmart. These are all really, really important things to look at. And then the behavioral data is what's super interesting. It's not just about going through the training, saying you completed, getting right or wrong answers, but it's understanding the actual behavioral of that individuals who are going through that training and how we can continue to improve that. JJ, anything to add here before we move on the platform side?
We're good.
Cool. So to take a step back and look at Shriver's journey. So as I mentioned before, we were founded out of Stanford. And Derek Belch, who was a coach at Stanford, played football there too, teamed up with Jeremy Bailison, who still leads the VR lab there. But they teamed up to really figure out, it was Derek was writing his thesis as he was going through school of like, VR training will improve performance. So they did this incubation with the football players there to see if they went through multiple reps in a headset, how that would help their on-the-field performance, and it did. And so Derek kind of took this idea, and he always says an example to where he got fired from Stanford, but he was also given a check of like, hey, go make this company. Kind of like, hey, this is something powerful you're onto. And so as this was founded, it was focused in the sports world with the highest level of professional athletes that are out there. From NFL, we had some NBA, Olympic athletes, a lot of the college, like major collegiate programs. And so this is where that started out. And then basically what happened is that as it was continuing to grow, we had our our first enterprise customer, which was Walmart. They actually saw what was happening with the University of Arkansas and said, hey, we want to figure this out for the enterprise. And so we were able to come in and work with them to create our first enterprise solution, which was great to partner with Walmart on that. But since then, we've been able to do over 1.5 million sessions on our platform across a lot of Fortune 1000s from a variety of different services, from financial services to retail to grocery. There's a lot of things that we can talk through from these experiences, but that's what, just to take an idea of where it started. And the whole vision of Striver, again, is to elevate performance. And we looked at that on the university on like the sports side, and then we see that in the enterprise side. And so we're super excited to kind of dive into how our platform actually does that. And again, when we're looking at the impact in the enterprise, we're really trying to help this be easy implementation. We're scaling this immersive content, and we're really providing those unique insights to your most important employees. And so we're really excited to dive into that. Some of the questions that can be answered through VR data to kind of dive into, we can talk through this more after the demo as well, but trying to figure out if VR is being adopted across the entire organization and how you can track that and see that. Without an immersive platform or a VR training platform, it's near impossible to try to get the same training across all the headsets across your organization. And so it's really important to see that, but also track that and see what training is where, see who's taking the training, but also, be able to make sure that the organization's taking advantage of that. How impactful is this training? Does it help you with learning gaps? Are employees able to translate that, practice to behavior? And then, is it a more effective medium than what we talked about with classroom training or the e-learning training? And so these are all things that we're able to answer with the data that we're able to do in these headsets. And I don't know, JJ, if you want to give any more context to kind of a little bit more on the data side before we dive in.
I was just thinking, like, in terms of in-headset, I think we're not showing a lot of in-headset today because it gets a little difficult to just show it over the web, like to give that full impact experience. But I think when it comes to learning in headset, there's two schools of thought that people love getting in headset and people don't want to get in headset. And I think that can be a difficult one to overcome. Like the training can be really impactful, powerful. Sometimes we even hear about the training being fun and they liked learning about, let's say, company values in a VR headset. But we do recognize, and we're not covering much of that today, but we do recognize that some people have learning challenges to be in headset. And I just wanted to say up front that we do recognize that. We do support accessibility items And we also recognize that like sometimes training needs to be done in headset sitting down for a while as people get used to it. And then later on, you can get into a little bit more of the motion of being able to stand in like a boundary area. So we're not covering a lot of that, but the goal is never to have learners in headset for a long time anyways. Most of the content that gets authored, we're really looking at the like 8 minutes to 12-minute mark because we recognize this is not our normal mode, and it takes a while to kind of get in there and get used to it. So that part, I think we're not covering too much today. We're going to cover more of the platform and data.
Yeah, yeah. And we'll talk about kind of the validation points of how, it's something that is impactful that people have been looking at for a while, but it's actually being implemented and used across the enterprises today. So when we look at some of the customer examples, like this goes to almost a little bit about what, some questions at the very beginning. Operational efficiency. There's, Sprouts was able to take their onboarding time from 4 hours to 45 minutes. And it's not that it was just a shorter time frame. It's the fact that this was that time frame to proficiency as well. And so they're able to shorten this training time, keep people operating faster, but also just as efficient, if not more, than the other training methods that they were doing. The similar thing with Walmart that you're able to look at, 8 hours to 15 minutes, but they also were looking at equating this with those cost savings. So, imagine taking those employees and being able to get them on the floor. That's a full days of work, operating faster and more efficiently when you're implementing a new project or a new technology or something to train people faster, to get them operating faster, and how that equates to cost savings within your organization. Engagement, we talked a lot about engagement. With Verizon, they had an active shooter training that, people went, to 97% feeling more prepared for these kind of situations that arise. And there's actually a news story with Verizon where someone referenced this training in an actual kind of live situation that was super helpful for them. And then employee retention. We've seen real results on employee retention as well, because when they're more engaged and they feel more invested in, obviously y'all know this, then they're wanting to stay longer and figure out how they continue to grow and learn. So we've been really excited about, examples in the enterprise and real numbers that we're able to develop and dive into here. And so to get to the platform, and when we talk about, what is Striver's platform, it's that ability to manage the content and the devices within the Striver portal, and then go through that actual training in our proprietary in-headset software, which we'll take a quick view look at today. And then after you're doing your training, you're collecting all the data, going through it, going back to that portal and being able to understand the analytics and insights of that. And so today we're not going to talk a lot about the content creation side, which is obviously super important. We can dive into that at the end, but we're going to focus, primarily on this, the Striver platform that includes the portal and the in-headset software. And so with that, I think we're in the live demo phase. And so I'll kick it over to JJ to share her screen and start going over that.
Sure. Paul, I see that my share is now activated. John, can you go back to the last slide for a sec?
Yeah, for sure.
One thing that I really like about this platform slide, maybe it doesn't update for the rest of us because now I'm the one sharing, so I can just talk to it. The one thing that I really liked about that diagram that John was showing was we can talk about device management, so the actual hardware, and then the software that gets on the device, and then we can talk about the content that we also need to get on the device. And then there's a section where you just kind of like you shift to in-headset, right? The devices are ready with the content and the learners are going through the training. And then there's a shift back to the platform when that data, which we also call telemetry, comes back to the platform. And so that's a little bit of the story that I want to walk you through by doing a live demo of our platform. So I'm just going to get this up and running on my screen. How are we looking, John? Are we on the landing page?
It's looking good to me. I'm able to see it.
Okay.
Maybe we get a confirmation from the crowd, but I think it's looking good to me.
Great. So where I am right now is what we're calling the Enterprise Striver portal. And so this is a collection of functionality that goes in that same vein. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through a couple of highlights on this portal to walk you through that story of device management and then managing your content, getting it on the devices, and what it looks like to have that come back. So I'm on a landing page. We have a little bit of a portal tour set here that just kind of goes through the highlighted areas of the portal. But I'm going to go through it in this order. So we're going to start with devices. So if we think about it.
Oh, sorry, JJ. I was just going to say, like, what you're doing is great, but just to confirm, like, you're going to go through, like, say these are the organizations, and they're like, how do I actually implement this? I just want to make sure that that's like,
Yeah,
hey,
yeah.
this is real. This is like, hey, if you're going to get these headsets and you're going to do this, this is like actually how it operates, which is super
Yes.
exciting.
Yes, this is what our customers see, but of course for demo purposes, I am on a demo site. So I do want to preface that you are not seeing any confidential information, that this is for our internal like demo uses. So the devices that will show up in this site are actually held onto by like Striver employees, because we all kind of contribute to getting this site up and running. So what I did first was I went to device overview. There are 2 device pages. What we're looking at is just overall metrics of the devices in your fleet, like across all sites. And what we're trying to highlight here is devices maybe that have been offline for a longer period of time. And I want to say that offline is not a bad thing. You can train offline. You really only need to have devices come online to be able to get content and to be able to upload the data at the end of training. But this page is just kind of giving you an idea of what does it look like? How many devices do I have? Are they offline? And if they've been offline for a long time, maybe they aren't getting the updates they need. You're able to come in here and troubleshoot and see what is it that I need to look at. So if I wanted to look at devices that have training content on them, but they haven't updated that training for a while, then I can see that quickly here. I can see a device. This one is a Pico Neo 3. So there's a bunch of different types of hardware that customers can use to do this training. Then there's some sort of organization of like, where is this device, or what group should this device be in? And then I've got high level status. I'm looking at connectivity. Is it online? Is it offline? Does it have the content that we expect to have on it? And is there training data that needs to be uploaded to our cloud for analytics? This is a general way of managing your devices, because you'll be distributed across a lot of locations, and there's a hardware component to this training as well, which I think is very new. Generally, classroom training, your hardware will be right there, right in front of you, like the desktop. And maybe e-learning, everyone's just using their own laptop, but here this is different. Headsets are sometimes a shared resource across a site. All right, I'm gonna move over to content. Are we good, John?
Say it again.
I'm gonna move over to content.
Yeah. Let's go. Let's go.
All right. So again, one thing that we're not covering today is how content is authored. And there are a lot of different ways that content could be authored. It could be something that you do with Striver, get content up and running. We do have some authoring tools that we use to create content for customers. The other option too is maybe you already have an in-house team that is creating content. Maybe they're using something like Unity, or maybe you have a trusted partner that you want to work with to create content. And that can all come into this platform. This is meant to be content agnostic and ideally also device agnostic to support. What we're seeing here is a content library. So we're looking at content that has already been authored, already been QA'd on headsets, and we're looking at like a list of content that we have here. So if I click on customer service, one thing I want to know is what does this look like on the headset? Well, on a headset, you would see customer service is the course name and a thumbnail, but then you might also see the experiences, the immersive experiences inside this course. And in this case, it's handling difficult customers. So this is a soft skill training. But we do that with most of our content so that the manager or the L&D director that is going through this program and thinking, what content do I have? What does it look like? This is giving an indication of what kind of content. Other tools that we have in our set here, deploy. Deploy means let's take a course, let's assign it to a group of devices. So this is how you would get content from the platform to devices. And then the next one, or the last one that I'll cover in content, is track. So how do we know that content got to the device? How do we know that it's fully downloaded to a device? And so we have a couple tools here to say, once you've assigned it to a group of devices, how do we know it's there? So being able to get that kind of, those metrics. So where we are in the journey is we've managed our devices, we've created content, and we've sent them to devices. And now there's been some sort of push within the organization to do the training that is now available. And we're going to look at what it looks like to see that data come back and visualize it.
Yeah. Did we want to take a quick look in headset before the data just to kind of...
Yeah, we can. Let's do that. So I probably need to stop sharing.
Share going. Let's see here. Sure, this is what you can see. Are you able to see my screen? Is that coming across?
I see a YouTube.
Yep. Perfect. So this is, we'll go through this, and this is just kind of showing the in-headset experience. Now, one thing that people have asked a question on, and I just want to, I'll pause and cover that real fast, is that people ask, can we get this training on desktop? You know, you saw that, you know, can we do these trainings, and can you do keyboard operations on something and do it on desktop? Well, the reality is that's why it's all about immersive learning, and that's where our metrics come from. That's where our impact comes from, is getting people in the headset. So what you're seeing here is what it looks like when you put on the headset, but obviously it doesn't have that immersive experience when you're looking over and having that full kind of you know, a VR experience. And so what you're seeing here is the acclimation screen. So when users come in and they log on, they're able to look at, you know, the alignment, headset fitting, everything, and then also do their detailed identification. So the reason why this is important is because, you know, individual learners, there's typically one headset to multiple learners within an organization. But we still want to track that individual's progress, and we still want to track that individual learner. And so you go in, you have your code that you put in, and, you know, functionalities like single sign-on are in progress that we'll be able to continue to have. But right now, they can input that data so that it's there. As we looked at, there's all these different trainings. So now this is what those trainings look like, you know, within a headset. You know, you can click in and see the different ones that you want to see. You click through the training, and then it actually will launch you into that actual training. When you go into the different experiences, you'll see in those experiences, we have information overlays. We have timed scene hunts that you can go through. A lot of different ways you can learn that are pretty exciting. And what you're seeing here is what we call, I'm trying to think of layman's terms, but it's called 3 degrees of freedom, meaning right now these trainings were created before more advanced headsets came out, to where you're basically looking around and you're clicking and going through the experience that way. You also have voice activation where there's speaking parts as well and dialogue. New training that's being created can have the experiences of actually like grabbing and pulling and kind of pulling up, and like literally, you know, there's a training with a fire extinguisher and putting out a fire, and you're literally pulling the pin and putting out the fire, and it's showing you exactly where to spray it. And so, you know, there's all sorts of varieties of types of content you can create. This is just giving you an example of, you know, different ones that we had before of going through these immersive experiences. And so a lot of variety of use cases, a lot of different types of content and how immersive it can be. And there's also like, that was what we call 360 experiences. with filming, and then these are the actual CG experiences. And again, depending on kind of what you're looking to do, that was you talking, and then you're talking to the character, and then after that training, this is actually you listening to yourself give that training again.
Yeah, that's a big learning opportunity right there, because I've been through some of those trainings as, like, let's say a manager having a difficult conversation with a direct report, and then I see the playback and I think, oh my gosh, I could have reworded that in a much better way.
Exactly. And this is the thing that's like what we found from our customers is super exciting is that, look, when you first do this, you are kind of sweating. It is kind of nerve-wracking in some of these trainings. You're like, am I doing this right? I don't want to sound like a fool. But then as you go through the playback and you do this multiple times, it does help you then in that real scenario be more confident. And I'm just saying this from my experience where I've actually been able to the repetition, and it's not like a role play scenario. It's literally like that's the training, and you're listening to yourself, and you're able to give yourself that right feedback and understanding from what you're trying to accomplish from the training. And you also have, like, sentiment surveys at the end, and these are really critical because then you can understand what people like about the training and how likely they are going to use it and submit it, and you can kind of create those as you like. And so during, kind of that brief experience showing what the in headset looks like, I think is important to see because it gives you the idea of, what it could be for your organizations. Now, having said that, if you're actually looking for a demo for your organization, you can go to striver.com/demo and talk to our sales team and figure out how to actually get you in a headset to go through that. So I wanted to put that out there right now so you could know that. But that, during that training, we're collecting, thousands of data points throughout that individual training. I think it's somewhere like 100 data points a second or something crazy because of all the different technology that's being enabled here. And then what JJ is going to go through is obviously the analytics of that. And so, but yeah, I wanted to point out to where if you are looking to actually get a demo, striver.com/demo to where you can get in the headset, you can experience these trainings and go through them yourself.
So I'm going to open up that enterprise portal again, just waiting for my share button to become, there we go. And we're going to look at the analytics section. So again, I'm in a demo site for the portal. And what we're looking at is learners that have gone through the training on the headset and that telemetry data, that was collected in the headset has come back. So what does that look like overall? So in the analytics section, we have 3 areas. We have the overview of all of it. I'll take you through a couple of graphs. Then we have the ability to analyze by course and then be able to analyze by the learner. So if I look at the graphs here, what I have is I've selected all locations, all learners, and I just picked a time period. I picked a quarter just so that there'd be a lot of data points to see here. And you can see my first chart is unique learners over time. There was 47 of them, and you kind of get an idea of what this looks like. So you can roll over the graph and see things like, okay, on this particular day, there must have been a big push and 23 learners went through training. You can go by course. So on this particular chart, I'm seeing all courses selected, but I can go through and say, well, I'm really only interested in the customer service course, and then have an idea. Or maybe you're comparing between courses as well. Unique learners by location. So we also have by location, and location is really, it's a grouping of your devices. So it could be store locations, it could be distribution centers, could be offices. It's really, that is for you to organize.
And JJ, one thing for that is that for people that are looking for more also remote learning, you could just do individual remote locations, right? So it is normally grouping, but you could break it down to individuals, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm going to move over to by course, and so I'll show you what this looks like. So here you can choose by the course. I'll just keep it on customer service, And then module is really just a hierarchy inside the course, like how we group the immersive experiences. And in this course, there's actually only one module, and that's pretty typical. There's a course and then some sort of hierarchy to organize experiences depending on how many different learning objectives or activities you're asking a learner to go through. And here we see, let's see, September 4th, we've got 3 learners, total of 5. Again, here I'm filtering by a week, but I could filter by a quarter, and then the graphs just update. I won't go through too many more details, but you can see there's a lot of information available. Unique learners over a time period, by concept, so that is depending on how you author the content, by location, experience overview. In this course, there's only one experience. So average score on this experience is 65%. And one other thing I wanted to highlight in analytics is you'll notice we have this menu here on these cards. If you click on the menu, you're able to export this data. So it'll take into account the filters you have up top, but you have the ability to export the data as well. And we won't get into integrations too much, but we do have some integrations with LRS. I think I'm going to leave it there, John, because I could go for a long time. I just wanted to give an overview.
Yeah. No, this is great. This is great. I think, I mean, the main thing to look at is that you're able to come from, you know, we can help with the device procurement. We talk about different partnerships we have. You get the devices, say you have a few hundred devices, whatever it is. You're able to manage those in our system, manage the content that you create, or we create for you, whichever one. Able to upload those, deliver to the training. It's cool. I always actually enjoy going through this full process in a short period of time, because it's pretty cool to see how this can drive that impact. And I think the last thing to kind of call out here, and this is, we don't have to dwell on this, but it's, you know, if you're looking at the compliance, the security, the privacy, these are all the certifications and checkpoints that we've been able to do. And so happy to, you know, I won't be able to best person to answer all these questions, but at least this can give you an idea that we are going through that, and that you know, it is enterprise ready to get this up and running for your organizations. And so I will leave that here. And I think at this time, we'd love to answer any questions that, you know, everyone has out there. And hopefully this was helpful to understand more about our platform.
I see one in the QA that maybe I could take up now. It goes really well with what we were just talking about. And it was talking about, like, how do we manage the distribution of headsets and maintenance, etc. And I can touch on a few points just from what I know with customers. A lot of our customers are using MDMs. That's like a managing software for devices. A lot of enterprises are using them for mobile phones, or maybe it's BYOD, and in this case headsets, because they are Android devices, are being managed by MDMs as well. So there's a couple out there. Intune, VMware has Workspace ONE, so we're familiar with that. And so that's a big management tool in terms of maintenance and working with the devices. And we do push out software updates, but they are essentially approved in the end by your IT admin or your MDM administrator. So hopefully that helps answer that question a bit.
Yeah, awesome. There's a question there about the integration with LMSs. Do you want to talk a little bit about that integration, as that's not something that we looked at just directly in the portal?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because it could go from a lot of different perspectives. So is it the integration from a content perspective? When we think about content right now, content is existing more in in our platform for customers than in their LMS, due to the nature of it's not played on desktop. So it makes more sense for that content to live in the platform. But then maybe when we're thinking about analytics and the data, we do have some customers who have integrations in terms of data through our platform. But then also you can get a lot of data exported out of our platform as well. So I almost want to say it really depends on the context and your learning program. And that's something we work with you on whether or not we're setting up a pilot or we're getting started with a demo.
Yep.
I don't know if you want to add more to that, John.
No, I mean, from what we've seen is that it's like, there's a few different systems out there, LMSs out there. And so we integrate with some more readily than others, but it's always, it's what we develop and learn with the individual enterprises as we build those out. So there's a great question here about integrating VR training content that another provider has developed on the Striver platform.
Yes.
And the answer is yes. Yeah, you can talk
Yeah.
about SDK and kind of what we're doing there, JJ.
Yeah, the short answer is yes. We do have customers who have partnered with other content shops or authoring shops or even just smaller vendors that are creating content for them in Unity. And we do have an SDK out there that they're integrating with. Part of that was that our platform could support any type of content, but more importantly, so that we could work with content providers to get the data that your enterprise is looking to capture once a user has gone through that content. So if I make a comparison with e-learning, you're typically looking at, has the user started and did they complete the content? But for us, we want to go beyond that. We want to see, how long did their gaze rest in a certain area? Were they able to do the timed activities if there were some? There's dialogue content, as we discussed before, and the sentiment survey. So there's a lot of extra data that can be collected, which is why we have an SDK now as part of our product suite.
Awesome. Awesome. There's another great question about getting an at-home test drive with the Oculus device that you might have at home. Short answer, Tom, is not yet. But I would love for you to get one of our devices, request a demo, and we can send that over to you that has kind of the full enterprise experience. And so we are working, we've obviously worked with Oculus a lot, but there's some integrations we're looking at for a consumer Oculus that just helps people get a test drive that is in progress. I would say as a whole, though, if you like the full immersive enterprise experience, that's what our demos can do, and we'll be happy to send a headset out to you. They come in these cool Striver branded cases. You kind of see that, it's kind of a whole fun experience. And so we love to get these out if it makes sense for your enterprise to learn more about it. All right. Is there any other core questions we want to go through? We appreciate everyone's time today. I think that we've been able to answer a lot. I love kind of the initial reasons why you're looking at VR training. I hope that we are able to answer that. It looks like, okay, there are some more I wasn't able to see. Let's go through this. My audience is office workers. I'm going to go through this question real quick, JJ.
Sure.
Is VR a good format for teaching people how to use for vital collaboration tools, that we have within the office place like Microsoft Teams or anything? We're teaching people how to build relationships with their global teams, virtual work environment, and all that. So in short, we have seen this be very helpful as a whole with distributed workforces. And this is what I would kind of maybe call, there's what we call soft skills and hard skills. And so if you're looking at like hard skills of how to use different technologies, virtual reality could be very interesting for that. We haven't had some exact examples of like, say, using whiteboarding tools just yet, but those are applications and experiences that VR continues to get better about. But when it comes to aligning people on a workflow or how to use new technologies, that's exactly, what Walmart did with the pickup tower, where they had a new technology that they had to implement in the store, and they used virtual reality to train everybody on that. And so that's where that training went from 8 hours to 15 minutes, or I can't remember the exact time frame. But so we have had that exact example with distributed workforces in kind of large groups of learning new technologies. And so how that training actually works and engages with, it's all up to the individual enterprise. But yeah, we've seen massive results of that. Let's see here. So, and if people are looking for, again, like, demos or anything, please reach out and do the striver.com/demo where we can look at that. And Wendy, did that answer your question? I want to make sure that I answered your question there, and that I said I answered it correctly, but hopefully that was helpful. And so great. So I think that JJ, is there anything else you want to add as we're kind of close this out? Oh, Wendy has one more question. Go ahead, Wendy. Let's go on a roll there if you have one more. There's a few questions about like kind of locations for VR training. If you request a demo and talk to our team, they can talk to you about that, about like geographic locations and where we are and where we're not. But we have scaled outside of the U.S., and so we can talk through specifically your enterprise and what you need there.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else to add to kind of the vital office worker? Oh, let's see here. Could Striver VR training be limited in a 2D format and mobile friendly? Okay, perfect. This is kind of, Wendy, what we talked about earlier. I'll give a brief answer, and then I would love for you, JJ, to kind of give the more intelligent response. But essentially, it's just not effective if it's not in a headset. Like the way that we train, get the numbers, and have this immersive experience of putting on that VR headset. If you're just looking at a screen on a mobile device and trying to do it that way, it's just the numbers aren't, the impact isn't there for what we've seen with these trainings. And JJ, I don't know if you want to dive into that further, but.
Well, I was thinking maybe we'd just give an example. For example, one type of content that is used is called 360, or what we call live action. And that content is shot with a 360 camera. And from like a customer standpoint, let's say you're in a warehouse, and the ability to shoot the 360 video in an actual customer warehouse means that what you're seeing in headset is the place where they would be doing this activity in real life. And so that's really important. You can't get that same experience just looking at a desktop or just looking at a mobile. And then when you're standing there and you're being asked for what are the safety hazards, like you're moving around, you're looking around in 360, and on mobile, it's just not the same. You're not really doing that with your body. You're only doing it with your eyes and like scrolling on a screen. And so it's that tactical learning that you lose in 2D. There are ways to train those things, but there's a reason why VR is also a very effective tool. And I'm not saying that VR should take over your learning or training. It doesn't cover all 2D cases either. So I think it should just be one of the tools in your toolbox when it comes to training.
Yes, that's exactly how I was thinking you would say it better than me just saying it's not as effective. But yeah, no, thank you, JJ.
Mm-hmm.
Well, look, thank everyone for your time. I really appreciate you coming today, being with Striver. We're grateful to, partner on this webinar, and thanks, Paul, for being such a great host and helping us out here. But we're looking forward to answering more questions, potentially if you request a demo, and reach out. We'd love to help, but hopefully this was good for you to learn more about enterprise VR training and what we're doing here at Striver. Anything else to add, JJ, before we sign off?
I'm good. Thanks, John. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming on and taking your busy schedule and taking some time today. So appreciate it. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.